So I've owned this T64S grinder now for about 6 weeks, and I reckon I can give a good go at giving the good, the bad and the ugly. So let's get into it. So I think, as with everything, you should probably start out with the good. So what do I like about it? Price, fantastic price. I like the SSP burrs. I've only got the niche zero to compare it against, so that's a conical versus flat. It's nothing really that I can compare to. But from what I've tasted, I like it. The low retention, roughly we're getting 0.1 on pretty much every single shot. So no retention. I like the looks of it. I think it looks good. I like the ease of the adjustability of the collar. That's nice and easy. I like the fact that you don't need bellows and the fact that the lid fits without the bellows. I think on the DF64 it doesn't actually, the lid on that doesn't fit without the bellows, I don't believe. I might be wrong at that, but yeah, so you don't need the bellows. Looks cleaner without them. I like that you've got a 58mm catch cup with an additional dosing collar on there, just to make sure the grounds and everything don't go everywhere. Detachable magnets, which is always good, makes cleaning easier. And I like the fact the adjustable RPM, while I'm not using it as a taste point of view, it's great for purging it, a bit like what the Lagon P100 does, Cavitec Flat Max, and we know how many thousands of pounds those grinders cost. So I mean, 800 RPM grind, whip it up to 2000, just purges the system. So that's really good. Probably not what it's designed for, well, it's not, but it works great. And as I say, I'm getting really consistent shots. If I grind the same bag of coffee at the same grind mark, shot after shot, I'm within a second or two, obviously as long as the put prep is just as good each time. Repeatability spot on, great tasting espresso, good clarity, good sweetness, lower body, which I actually don't mind some of the thinner body, especially as I'm drinking more sort of Americano, so put some hot water with it doesn't really matter the syrupy body then, does it? Really great grinder, and I think for the money, you really can't complain for the £459 that I paid for it. So if we move on to the bad points, firstly, the bellows I think are ugly. I've taken them off. I don't like bellows. I don't like the use of bellows. When you puff, even if you've just got, say you want to get that 0.1 out, if you lightly tap, you get nothing. Then when you give it a big puff, you get a cloud of fines everywhere. And it's basically when you've got a white worktop and a white grinder, and you're someone like me who likes to be pretty clean, it's an absolute nightmare and it just becomes annoying. So the fact that a little spritz of water got rid of really the need to use the bellow in my case was great. One thing I also don't really like is the fact that this collar, you can hear that, it's very loose. So although it doesn't necessarily, I haven't found that it moves during grinding, the thread, the pitch is rather large. So if you're trying to really dial this in fine, you need that really micro adjustment. You'll find it's quite difficult because the movement is quite large on the threads. So although it's spinning freely now, I don't particularly like that. I'd like to see the threads a little bit finer. So the next thing that I don't actually like, which is inside, is the popcorning. This grinder popcorns, no matter what you do, it popcorns. And the problem is, if you're trying to do like a slow feed with the beans and you haven't got a bellows on there, which obviously gives you another couple of inches, as you're slowly pouring it in, it's just popping back out. It's popping out, and that is really annoying. So really you've literally got to be as quick as you can. Throw all your beans in, get the lid on. Otherwise you're just gonna have a popcorning mess, which is a little bit disappointing, but it is what it is, I guess. And also the popcorning disc, if you like, I think it's too high. It's not actually really doing anything. It's not acting as popcorn. It's not acting as like a slow feed disc. It's not really gonna do anything. And then if we move on to probably the ugly and the things which really annoy me about this grinder, and it's back to this anti-popcorn disc actually. The way it works is, it's like on an angular, so you've got three, let's take it off and I'll show you. So on here, you've got three prongs, and they're like V's. They're like a V shape. So what's happening is, as this grinds, and as you're grinding away, what you'll find is when beans popcorn back up, they get stuck on one of those three lips, especially because they're angled like that. It means they can just sit on top rather than it being round or thinner. Beans wouldn't be able to sit. And I would actually say that it's probably a problem 9 times out of 10. When I hear that the grinder is finished, I then lift the lid off and have a look and go, oh yeah, and I flick the last remaining bean, or sometimes two, into the grind, which is really annoying, I have to say, not ideal. So you can take this anti-popcorn disc out. I think it's on three screws on the bottom of this collar. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to take that off because it's not adding anything for me. And another point that I don't like, which I believe is something similar on the DF83, the ugly point, is when you go from espresso to filter, this grinder has, between the burrs and the sweepers and the outer case, you've only got a few millimeters. So you find that this grinder is really taking around half a gram, swapping half a gram each time you grind. Now, if you are going from filter to espresso, when you grind for filter, say you weigh out 30 grams of coffee, I guarantee you'll have 30.5, 30.7 come out, because it's pushing that remaining grinds that were sort of stuck behind the declumper fork, and it pushes those out. And also what I don't like, so that's one thing I don't like, mixing between espresso and filter. And the other thing is the noise and the way that I don't quite know what's going on. But if you're at a setting of, say, let's go for 40, when you're then trying to turn back to an espresso setting with the grinder on, you can only move in very fine increments, and you get like a false chirp noise, and it becomes very stiff. You can't turn it, you have to back it off, then go again, back it off, and it's making a horrendous noise. There's some resistance. Now, I don't know if that's because there is actually some remnant coffee stuck somewhere, or it's not because it's been grinding and it's on those like three sort of spikes pushing down the top burr, that it's not actually going down properly. I'm not sure, but basically, from espresso to filter or filter to espresso on this grinder, for me so far, is not an enjoyable experience. I would say if you're going to be switching regularly, I wouldn't bother with this grinder. I find it too much of a pain. I find it too much of a nuisance, and also with that noise going between the two, a little bit of a worry. Now, I don't think it's anything wrong. I think that's how it is. And if you actually back the collar all the way off and don't even have the grinder on and then screw the collar down, it actually doesn't make a noise or stop at all. So I'm not sure if it's the large pitch thread. I'm not sure if there's some coffee stuck somewhere when you're grinding at a coarser setting to espresso. I don't know, but it is horrible, and it makes a horrible noise, and it's a really bad user experience. I would also say, compared to, say, the Niche, which is the only other grinder which I've had, which I've now sold, by the way, can't see it, which I've had that is of more of a premium quality, I would say this is not built as well. I don't think the finish is as nice as the Niche. I don't think that it's as well built as the Niche either. The finer details, like the threads, you'll notice here on the different powder coatings, this collar, which is the zeroing collar, really looks a bit like an afterthought because it's a different powder coat to the rest of the body. It's like it was added last. So there's the little bits of quality about there, but I think generally speaking, when you pay £459 for a grinder and you get burrs that cost around 200, to have then a grinder that costs basically £260 for the rest of it, I don't think I can really complain. I mean, the nitpicks are pretty minimal really, and it's more than functional. It's more than giving me great espresso. I'm more of an espresso drinker anyway. As I say, if you're filter focused, this isn't really the grinder. I think it's an espresso focused grinder anyway. You know, filter, it's not got filter burrs for a start. The SSP high uniformity burrs are espresso focused. They can do filter, but you want the multi-purpose in SSP or the brew burrs. for filter. So it's gearing for espresso anyway, and I think that shows in the way that moving between the two, as I've mentioned, is not a great experience in my opinion. So great espresso grinder. I'll continue to use it, continue to test it. I have got some more things on the way. I've got an MHW3 Bomber tool and a bit of Normcore tooling haul on the way. So if that interests you, please like and subscribe. Greatly appreciated. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.